This is the book of Revelations, chapter 1 and verse 14. His head and his hairs were white like wool.
His head and his hairs. His head and his hairs, meaning the hair on his head, the hair on his face. Remember, Christ had a beard. The head on his head and his face, come on.
As white as snow.
Was white as snow. Read the wool part again. Read it again.
His head and his hairs were white like wool.
Was white like wool. The word we want to pull out of there, brothers and sisters, is wool. Who has woolly hair today? Black people. Another word for wool is kinky hair, nappy hair, also known as woolly hair. And not only was it white like wool, but it was what?
As white as snow.
As white as snow, as white as snow. It was all white. Why? Because Christ was in his glory. Come on.
And his eyes were a flame of fire.
Now, why does it say that Christ's eyes was as a flame of fire? It's talking about the whites of his eyes. It's not talking about his pupils. Okay, it's talking about his retina. Okay, why was the whites of his eyes as a flame of fire? Can we get the prophecy, please? Can we get the prophecy? Because a lot of times we assume that by now our brothers and sisters would know that Christ is a black man. Okay, but guess what? A lot of our brothers and sisters don't know that. Even on a black continent is Africa. They don't realize that Jesus Christ, who walked on the continent of Africa, is a black man, because many of you still worship in the image of the beast, the white image of Jesus Christ. But prophecy in Genesis 49 verse 12, listen to what Moses said. Read.
This is the book of Genesis chapter 49 and verse 12. His eyes shall be red with wine.
His eyes shall be red with wine. Does that mean that when Christ blinked, wine came dripping down his eyes? No. It means his eyes was red with wine. John the Revelator said his eyes looked like what? A flame of fire, meaning they were red. Remember, Jesus Christ's first miracle, he turned water into wine. Go back to Revelation. So what is John the Revelator giving you? He's giving you a similitude, a metaphor, a metaphor. This is black people talk. Black people speak with metaphors, all right? That's what you get in rap music today. Our people are the ones that use metaphors when they speak, similitudes. Read it again from the top, verse 14.
Yes, sir. The book of Revelation, chapter 1 and verse 14. His head and his hairs were white like wool.
His head and his hairs were white like wool. White like wool. White like wool. Come on.
As white as snow.
As white as snow. Come on.
And his eyes were as a flame of fire.
We just read Moses said the Messiah's eyes will be red with wine. John the Revelator is now saying his eyes were as a flame of fire. Read on.
And his feet.
And his what?
And his feet.
When you look at anybody's feet, brothers and sisters, it looks like the rest of their body. Compare the complexion of your feet to the complexion of your hand. Compare the complexion of your feet to the complexion of your face. Okay? Very, very, very similar. Okay, go ahead.
Like unto fine brass.
Like unto fine brass. Brass is a derivative of brown. Brass, the metal brass, is different shades of brown. But notice what John the Revelator said. He said fine brass. How do you make brass fine? There's something that you have to do with this brass. What do you have to do? Read on.
As if they burned in a furnace.
He's giving a comparison. That's what he says, as if they burned in a furnace. What do you get? Black. Blackety black, black, black. Toasty black. Okay? Very, very black, as if he was burned in a furnace. Get a white man out of that. Put a white man in a furnace. What happens to him? He's going to come out dead and black. That's what's going to happen to him. Put anything in a furnace. What happens to it? It becomes black. Hey, some of you women, some of you black women who can't cook right, guess what? You burn rice all the time. Okay, you burn rice all the time. What color is the rice when you burn it? Black. Okay, so Jesus Christ is a black man. But let's get back to the topic.